If your brush tool has suddenly stopped working and you're not sure what to do, this tutorial will teach you how to get things back up and running in no time. Let's get started. What's happening, guys? My name is Brendan from BeWillCreative.com, and on this channel we talk all about photography and photo editing. So if that sounds like something that you would be into, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with more tutorials just like today's. The brush tool is one of the most commonly used tools in Photoshop, and when it suddenly stops working, well, that really throws a wrench in things. Luckily, there are a bunch of easy ways that you can troubleshoot the problem, and it's never really that big of an issue. The first time this happened to me, I thought there was something completely wrong with Photoshop, but luckily, it was just a few little settings I had to adjust, and we were back up and running. So let's hop into Photoshop and start talking about the different scenarios that you might be experiencing. Now, one of the first and most common issues that you may be facing is that your brush tool cursor has just suddenly disappeared. The cursor is this little circular icon that represents the size of your brush, but all of a sudden it can just disappear and you no longer have that circle, you only have this little crosshair thing, and that's kind of annoying. So at first you might think that there's something totally wrong with your brush tool, but in fact the only thing that has changed is that you have the caps lock button on. If you turn on and off the caps lock button on your keyboard, you'll be able to change the cursor on your brush tool. Now, this little cursor is called the precise cursor, and it's used to get really close and detailed to where you're painting, because rather than having a giant circle, you're just getting a general idea of where you're painting. With a precise cursor, you can really nail down exactly what you're painting on. So if you have to do a precise layer mask adjustment, this can be super helpful. In terms of your Photoshop brush not actually working, just pressing the caps lock is going to fix that cursor problem. The second problem that you might face with the brush tool is that it doesn't actually paint anything at all. You try to paint an adjustment and nothing actually appears on your layer. And the first thing that you should look at when that happens is going up to your brush settings tab. So with your brush tool selected, the first thing you want to double check is that your mode is set to normal. With your normal blending mode, you're going to have a regular colored brush that's going to paint exactly like normal. You'll also want to double check that your opacity and flow is at 100% so that all of your brush adjustments are visible. This is another common issue that is super easy to fix and could be a reason why your brush tool isn't working in Photoshop. The other issue you might be facing while making brush adjustments is that all of your settings just disappear. All of a sudden your screen looks like this, and all of your tabs and settings bars have disappeared. When you're wanting to work with the brush tool and make different adjustments, this isn't the best situation. If this happens to you, all you have to do is press the tab key on your keyboard to toggle the panels to be visible and invisible again. So pressing tab will make everything invisible, pressing tab again will make everything visible again. So if you lose all of your settings bars, just press tab and it'll bring those panels back to view. The next problem you might be facing with the brush tool is that it's not actually painting the proper color. Let me give you an example. Let's say I want to paint a nice red brush. I've selected a red brush with my color picker, and now I go to paint the color on, and as you see, the brush is black, but clearly we have selected a red brush. Now the problem here is that we are actually changing the background color when the brush tool only paints the foreground color. So in this case, if we look at the foreground color, which is the top color of the two here, the foreground color is set to black, which is what has been painted onto our layer. So to change that foreground color, I'm going to need to click on that foreground color, and now I can adjust it however I want. Let's just pick a random green color here, and now I can paint on, and it's going to apply the exact color that I just picked because we've altered the foreground color and not the background color. Now, if you don't use this color module like I'm using, the other option is that you're picking colors down in the foreground and background color from your toolbar. Now, in this case, you'll just again want to click on the foreground color and not the background color when you go to select a color to paint with. And then that way you'll be able to always ensure that you're going to paint the correct color that you're wanting every time. The next problem you might be facing is that your Photoshop brush will only paint some version of white, black, or gray. And that's because you have a layer mask selected somewhere in your layers panel. In this example, it's super easy to see because we only have one layer mask active in the entire project. But if you have multiple layers going, you'll just want to look for the highlighted layer with the layer mask that has the white boxes around it to indicate that it's selected. Since the world of layer masks works in white and black, that means that no matter what color you pick here, see how I'm picking a very bright colored red, if you look at the foreground color, it's kind of a off gray color. The reason for that is that since the layer mask is selected, the only things that are going to work on a layer mask is some version of white, gray, or black, and so even if you pick a color it's going to automatically convert it to the closest version of white, gray, or black that is available. So if that is a problem and you're wanting to just paint this color on and not adjust your layer mask at all, you'll want to click on your layer thumbnail, and so that way you're selecting the image, and now as you see we have our colors back, and now I can begin to paint the colors and use my brush tool just as normal. Now, a less common issue, but something that may still be happening to you, is you keep getting an error message every time you go to paint on a layer. Now, there's a couple of reasons why that might be. The first one being that the layer is locked, and the second reason is that the layer is a smart object. If your layer is locked, it's going to look something like this. It's just going to have a lock icon beside it, and as you see, I get a big no entry sign for my brush tool, and if I click, it says I cannot use it because the layer is locked. And so I can unlock the layer by clicking on the lock icon, and now I can begin painting once again. The alternate version to this is if your layer is a smart object, and you can know whether or not it's a smart object by checking if it has the smart object icon on the layer thumbnail. When a layer is a smart object, it is not directly editable, which means that you can't directly paint onto the layer without rasterizing the smart object. When you're wanting to edit non-destructively, this isn't a great idea, so I would suggest, if you have a smart object, to just create a new layer first and then paint onto the new layer. That way you can continue to edit non-destructively and you won't have any problems. Now, if you've come to this point in the video and you still haven't figured out what's wrong with your brush tool, then the fail-safe to it all is to just reset the brush tool entirely. To do this, all you have to do is grab your brush tool by pressing B on your keyboard, going up to your main settings bar and clicking on this little drop-down menu beside the brush tool icon. From here, you'll click the gear icon and then go down here to reset tool. By resetting the brush tool, you'll be bringing it back to default settings, which will hopefully get rid of any problems that are causing you to have issues with the brush tool in the first place. No matter how good you are at Photoshop, you will run into brush problems at one point or another. I know I do all the time, and it's just going through these troubleshooting methods that helps me to fix the problem in just a few seconds. The reason the brush tool stops working is never for any catastrophic reason. There's usually a simple fix, and it's not really much to worry about. Now, if this tutorial helped you to solve any of your issues with the brush tool, then make sure to hit that like button, and also consider subscribing to stay up to date with more tutorials just like this one. Now, if you love photography and photo editing, then make sure to check out my blog at bewillcreative.com, where we post weekly photography and photo editing tutorials that will take your work to the next level. You can find the latest article on bewillcreative.com via the link in the description below. Now, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to fix and troubleshoot the brush tool in Photoshop, and with that, I'll catch you back here next time. See you then.